डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी.
Welcome back to Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. In the previous session we have discussed regarding Java database connectivity. In that session we have seen that how do we establish connections with the underlying database using JDBC API. Now in these sessions we are going to discuss about a most important concept of today's environment is a distributed object access. Now in today we are seeing that we are accessing the services from anywhere across the world, but we are not aware that how the programmers are using services, what kind of stuffs they are putting behind for allowing such kind of services to the user. So generally when we want to access a remote object, it is all about remote access. Okay, so when we want to access a remote object from a particular locations, there should be a mechanism in Java to access this object from a particular location. So the location we will use it location, but generally we will refer it as a remote location, remote machine. Generally a location means a machine from where we are going to access the object and call it and perform our task as and when required. So how Java provides such kind of mechanism? So generally Java is having a single method or single solutions for distributed object access in terms of RMI. So RMI is a remote method invocation mechanism which helps the user to invoke the remote object, call the method that he or she wants and perform the task using the remote method. So generally when we are talking about remote method invocations, the RMI is a remote objects existing on one machine may be accessed from another machines through regular method call. Okay, it is a simple method for accessing a remote method from the other environment, from other we can say location. It's Java only solution from the distributed object model. RMI generally works in a marshalling, and that means for every RMI applications there should be a serialization. That means marshalling and unmarshalling takes place from the client and server, we can say. When we are talking about invoking a remote objects from one place to another place, then we generally calls one machine which fires a request to another machine, then the requester will be known as a client and the service provider will be known as a server. So what we can say that there would be a program which fires a request, at that end there would be a marshalling kind of process, and once the data reaches to the another end, a remote machine, there would be a process of unmarshalling the same data that has been sent through the request. So marshalling and unmarshalling functions are there in RMI. Then java.rmi and java.rmi.server packages helps us to perform this remote method invocation. Now before we proceed to discuss the tasks of RMI, how RMI works, we need to know certain other technology which is relevant to RMI, which is related with RMI. This is first one is the CORBA. What the CORBA is? So generally RMI, we already seen that RMI is all about one solutions in Java for distributed object access, while if we are not using Java, then we can use a CORBA, common object request broker architecture, which is language independent, that is used to access the object from a remote site irrespective of, we can say, any underlying language. So the CORBA and RMI is having the same functionality, but Java is all about RMI, that means RMI is related with Java and CORBA is language independent, so it can be used with any language. RMI is, we can say, used with Java language, while CORBA is an alternative, we can say it's an alternative to the RMI. Now the another term is the RPC, the remote procedure call, and we are talking about remote method invocation, and the same way there is a remote procedure call, another concept. So what is the difference between these two concepts? So generally RPC is a procedural call programming paradigm, that means it is a procedural programming paradigm used and developed with C base, while RMI supports object oriented paradigm. So the difference is that the RPC was used and developed we can say C stub. So it is following the procedure oriented paradigm, while RMI is in Java. So we know that Java is object oriented environment, so it allows us object oriented functionality. Second, another difference is all about parameters, that the whatever parameters we are passing in RPC, that will be a ordinary data structure, while in RMI whatever parameter we will pass, that will be a object. Okay. Then after the other, we can say the difference is that in RPC all the call will be, or all the parameters passed will be a pass by value, while in, we can say, RMI it may be a pass by value or pass by reference. RPC protocol generates more overhead compared to the RMI, and another difference is that it is all about in and out. That means whatever parameter we are passing in RPC, they must match. That means if we have passed a particular type as an input, then the output would be of the same type, while same is not required in RMI. So this is all about the RPC and RMI. Now the architecture of RMI, how RMI works. So let us see that one end is client, another end is server. So what the client does, to simply to access the remote object which is residing on server, the client will fire a query, and the query will passes from these stages and it reaches to the server. The remote object invokes the remote method residing on the server, will execute it, form the response, and the response will once again process and passed from these stages and reaches to the client. So the architecture of the RMI is consisting of client, stub, remote reference layer generally known as RRL, and transport layer, skeleton, and server. Okay. So when we are talking about client and server, then it is known as an application layer. Okay. Here the client and server are residing, so they will work as an application. Stubs and skeletons are generally known as proxies. They are known as proxy. The remote reference layer will work as a virtual connection, virtual layer, virtual connections over here, and the transport layer is there, which is responsible for establishing the connection, transporting the we can say data between this client and server, and waiting for, we can say, managing another connection request. Okay. Now let us have a discussion about this architectures in detail. So what is the stub and what is skeleton? As we seen that in the client side, in previous slide, there is a stub. So generally client is a program which is looking for the remote object at remote side. So before client invokes a remote method, we need to know what is stub. So generally stub is a client proxy. What the stub does? The generally stub does the marshalling and unmarshalling mechanism. See, stub is known as client side proxy and skeleton is known as server side proxy, opposite end. The client server communication goes through these proxies. Client sends the request to the server, and the request passes through the stub. What the stub does? The stub marshals the data, marshals the request. That means it converts an object into a byte stream, passes this data to the remote reference layer. Remote reference layer does the, we can say, it is having references of the remote objects, as well as it also performs this task of duplicate remote objects, and if it is found, it manages these duplicate objects and passes this query to the underlying transport layer. This underlying transport layer will pass the data to the opposite, we can say, remote reference layer. Thus at the opposite end, the remote reference layer passes the request to the skeleton. The skeleton process in a reverse manner, that at this stub side it was marshaled, at the opposite end, at this server side it will unmarshal the data. That means it will convert the byte stream or stream into an object that is originally passed from the client and pass it to the remote machine. The remote machine will access the request data, process the data, and send the response back to the skeleton. Once again, what the skeleton will do now? The skeleton will perform the marshalling task in sending the response. The skeleton will perform marshalling of the response, it will convert it, then send it back to the remote reference layer, and remote reference layer will pass the data through transport layer, and transport layer once again send the data to the remote reference layer at client side, and remote reference layer will proceed the data to the stub. The stub will process the data after unmarshalling the response, and after that it will send it to the client. So, this way the whole cycle is performed, okay, from client to server, marshalling and unmarshalling, and from server to client, marshalling and unmarshalling. That marshalling and unmarshalling are performed at both the end, at first side from client side while firing the request, and second time when server sends a response back to the client. So, stubs and skeleton are playing the role of proxy. They are actually not, we can say, hard coded by the programmers. Programmers are not creating it. They are generally working as a proxy for the client and server. Marshalling and unmarshalling we have already discussed, that it is all about converting the object to a stream and streams to object. Then after the remote reference layer, the RRL plays a vital role while we can say establishing and managing the remote reference of a server. So, it is having references of different remote objects. Also it is also responsible for managing the duplicate remote references as well. Then after, RRL transmits data to the transport layer via the abstraction of stream oriented connection. It also passes the data, responsible passing the data to the underlying transport layer. Now, transport layer is generally responsible for setting up the connections to remote address spaces, managing the connections, listening to incoming calls, maintaining a table of remote objects that reside in the same address space, setting up connections for an incoming call, locating the dispatcher for the target of the remote call. Generally, so transport layer is responsible for establishing and managing the connections, waiting for the new request, all the kind of stuff is managed by the transport layer. So, transport layer is also playing a vital role while performing a whole client server communications in a distributed environment. Then after, we can RMI functionality, we have already discussed that how RMI is working. Now, once we have an understanding of RMI and its concept, like what is client, what is stub, what is RRL, what is transport layer and skeleton, we can start to write the RMI applications. So, now we are going to discuss different steps to build a RMI application in Java. So, to develop or to write a Java applications in RMI, we need to know different packages first. So, generally the most important packages that we want to import are the java.rmi, java.rmi.server, and then after we will another package is there, that naming class is going to be used, but that we will see once we will start we can say a Java program. But before that, let us have a look at the steps involved in building a RMI based application in Java. So, the steps involved are create the interface to the server, create the server, create a client, then after we have to compile the previously created interface, server and client programs using the javac command. Then after we will generate a stubs and skeleton, as we talked that stubs and skeleton are the proxies. They are not hard coded or developed by the programmers, so, but we have to create it. We have to generate stubs and skeleton using the RMIC command. RMIC stands for RMI compiler, which is responsible to generate the stubs and skeleton. Then after, the most important task is all about RMI registry. Now, what is RMI registry? The generally RMI registry is maintained in which all the remote objects needs to be registered. So, whenever a client is looking for a particular remote object, what it will do? It will look up into the RMI registry, and if the remote instance or remote object is available into the RMI registry, it will be returned to the client, and then after the client will use that instance to invoke the remote method from server. So, this is all about client side. Now, what about server side? So, before the server starts, and provide a functionality or remote access, it will register the remote object into the RMI registry using the bind method. We will see the method. Bind method helps us to register a remote object into the registry. Once the object is registered, any client can search into the registry and access the remote object. So, RMI registry plays a vital role in a overall RMI environment. Then after, once the registry is started, we can execute the server program, and then after client program to fire the query. Next is the steps discussed in detail, that we can see that we will extension of interface, that means remote interface is java.rmi.remote, as each remote interface required to be implemented. So, we will create a remote interface one in which we will have a simple method that is required to be implemented at server side. So, first we will create a remote interface, declare the method, the remote object exports, declare such each method to throw java.rmi.remote exception. Okay, this interface will probably throw a remote exception if the method is not available. So, we need to throw java.rmi.remote exception. Then after we will write a server class, and in that we will have a implementation of java.rmi.server.unicast remote object. Okay, a remote method which we are going to, or the user is going to implement in a class, that class must extend a unicast remote object, and extension of that particular remote class remote object is java.rmi.remote defined in first step. Okay, simply what I mean to say is that we have already defined the remote interface at first step. Then after, before we implement a remote interface, we need to implement unicast remote object, so that we can provide the implementation of our remote interface or remote method in that particular class. After that, we will write a server program, and in which we will provide the other functionality as required by the programmer. Then after, we will write the client program and compile the client server and create the stub as we discussed in the steps. Then after, at last we will start the RMI registry and execute the server program. Okay, now we have already seen different concepts of RMI, the structure of the RMI execution. Then after, we seen that the different steps involved in RMI application. Now the same steps, all hierarchy that we have discussed so far, that will be we will implement using the Java programs. Let us see how we can develop the RMI application using the Java. Now see, as we have discussed in our first slide in the steps, create the interface to the server. This is the first step. So, the first task of our user is that we have to create a remote interface. So, we are creating a remote interface, public interface remote interface, and which extends java.rmi.remote class. Now, see here, in a remote interface we are using a defining one method string message, having a one argument string message, and it is throwing a java.rmi remote exceptions. As we discussed that the remote method may throw a remote exception. So, what we have seen here is that we have created a remote interface which extends a remote interface java.rmi.remote, and it is having a remote method message. So, now we have a remote method in terms of the name is message, that we will implement in our program. So, before we implement it in our program, we need a class named remote server, which will extend unicast remote object and implement remote interface. So, see here, we have seen that we are creating a remote server class which extends a unicast remote object and implements the created remote interface as we created earlier, remote interface. So, once we implement remote interface and extend a unicast remote object, this class is responsible to provide the implementation of the remote method called message. So, here we are providing the implementation of message method. See here, it returns a string, a method. Now, apart from this implementation, simply in what we are doing here in implementation, we are getting the parameters from the client as an argument and displaying it along with the message. Apart from that, here we have a one argument constructor. See, so whenever we are creating the objects of remote server, we are passing one argument that is called name. Its name is a string of variable, and passed a static argument university. So, this will be passed as an argument to the constructor. So remote, whenever the constructor will execute, it will set the name as a value of university to the name variable of class. Then after our message remote method implementation is there, see, in which we have passed a message argument. So message argument will be set as a return value to the remote method. See here, return I am, the name that we have passed as a to the constructor, and then after static string is there, thanks for your visit, and the message that we have passed from the argument, that means from command line. See here, we are reading. So string my name is equal to university, remote server, the server is there, instance, and the most important part of this program is this. As I told you that once a remote method is there, server, a remote service provider has to register its object with a RMI registry. So this rebind method will do the same thing. There are two methods of naming class. See, a naming class is derived from java.rmi package. So the naming class is having generally three methods to bind the object and unbind the objects. So there are two methods for bind. To a simple bind, if you will use it bind, that means what it will do, simply at initial first time if you are binding objects in a registry, then you can use bind method. But if it is already previously binded, then second time if you are going to use it, you need to use rebind, otherwise it will throw an exception that the object is already bind with RMI registry. So the naming dot rebind method will register the object, this remote object, the server we have created, with the name BAOU. This is the name with which we are registering our object in RMI registry. So BAOU will be used by client to look into the RMI registry for a remote reference. So BAOU is a remote reference name of the remote object, the server. Once the registration is over, the server is ready to listen for the request. Okay. So this is the most important part of a server program, that we are creating a remote instance, we are binding it with a rebind method of naming class. Okay. Once it is over, then after we will proceed for the client side. Now what the client does is simply this client task is only to look for the remote instance that we have registered in RMI registry. So see here, we are creating a remote client. Under that we are creating the instance of remote interface we have created earlier, remote interface. The remote interface is casted. Okay. We are looking for the remote method. So the method used is lookup of naming class. In our server we have used rebind method, while in a client we are using lookup. That means we are looking for the remote instance, remote object named BAOU, which is already registered by the server. So naming dot lookup method will return a remote reference, remote instance. So we need to cast this remote instance with a remote interface we have already created. Once it is returned and casted to the remote instance, we can use this instance to execute our remote method. So once we have a server as a remote instance, we will use it to call our remote method, that is message we have defined in interface. See, and we provided the implementation in server message. So what we are doing is here, that server dot message we are passing an argument of 0, that we are passing the 0 argument that will pass from the argument. It will return the first argument we are passing from the command line, and it will pass to the remote method. So remote method will fetch it here and display it along with the message that we are writing here. So this is all about RMI environment. So what it involves, first to create a remote interface which extends a remote interface, write the remote method, implement the remote interface in a program which has already implemented unicast remote object, provide the implementation of the remote method, and register the remote object with a naming dot remind method, and then after write the client programs to look for the registered remote object into the registry, cast it with the remote interface and call the remote method with the returned remote instance. So, this is all about the implementation environment of RMI. We have seen that we have created interface, client and server program. Now, let us see how do we execute it. So, generally we have 3 instances, client, server and interface. So, we will create a 3 command prompt to execute our program. Let us set the path where our applications are. We are setting the path where our programs are residing. So, we have set the path in all the 3 windows. Now, as we have already discussed the steps to execute RMI application, first of all we will compile all the programs we have created. So, we will write java c command dot star dot class. So, it will compile all the Java files. Sorry, we have written dot class, instead we have to write Java. So, after the successful execution of java c command, we ensures that to the user that all the programs are successfully compiled. After the compilation, the next task is to create the stub and skeleton. So, to create this stub and skeleton, we need to write RMIC command. RMIC compiler will do to create a stub and skeleton. So, RMIC and then after write the server program name, that is remote server. So, after executing this command, it will generate a stub and skeleton. Our stubs and skeleton has been generated, that you can check out in our folder. See here, stub is there, okay, and stubs and skeleton. Skeleton is generally in latest JDK environment. It is, we can say, recommended that you should not create, and it is not used generally. The stub is used for the executions of the program as being a proxy. Once we have a stub and skeleton in our folder, the next step is to start the RMI registry. So, in another window, okay, you can start over here as well. In another window, you can start RMI registry. RMI registry, pass the command RMI registry. So, registry is started. So, minimize this window where the RMI registry is started. In another window, start server program, as server is waiting for the request ready to continue. And in the third window, start the client, execute client. So, as we have written in a client that we are passing the argument. So, we will pass here first argument, let us say hello. So, we are getting the response here. The remote server says, I am university, thanks for your visit, hello, as we have written the same message in our client program, sorry, in server program. See here, return I am university, thanks for your visit. This message we have passed the argument from the client. So, this is what the RMI execution environment is. We need to create the remote interface, remote method we have to display. Then after the same implementation of remote interface and its remote method in a server program, and then after we have to use the client programs to look for the remote reference in a registry and use it for invoking the remote method. So this is all about RMI implementation using Java. So I hope that you might have understood the concepts of RMI in Java program. Okay, so you have seen that we have created 3 programs: remote interface, client and server, and we have provided the mechanism required as displayed in the different steps of RMI application in all these 3 programs. And at last we have executed it. We have sent the request from client program and the server has responded back with a particular message that we have written in a response. So I hope that you might have cleared and understood the concepts of RMI, its working environment and the steps to create RMI application using Java program. Thank you very much.
स्वाध्यायः परमम्